What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It is I, your host, Adam Perez, back once again with a brand new episode as we're going to be getting into Chapter 3 of the Book of Boba Fett, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, the limited series that's currently airing over on Disney Plus as of right now. I believe 6 episodes in total. So we're about halfway through this particular series so far. But I'm kind of curious to know what you guys have thought about this season so far. Remember, at the end of the day, these are simply my A-plus opinions, but I definitely want to go ahead and know yours. So if you've had the opportunity to check out Book of Boba Fett so far, what have you thought about the season so far? What did you think about this particular episode? Let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this particular video airs. And if you guys do have any comments, any questions as we're going through this particular episode, feel free to go ahead and ask or talk about anything that you certainly would like to hopefully further go ahead and add discussion to this this particular video and review this week. And if you do ever have any live viewer questions, feel free to submit them over at any time to aplusopinions@gmail.com. Again, that's aplusopinions@gmail.com, and we'll definitely get to your questions at the end of the show. At the end of the show, if there actually are any. So, sorry, I got something in my mouth, like a piece of hair. That's what happens when you walk around living with like 7, 8 dogs from time to time. Things like that usually happen. Marcelino is in the house. Thank you very much, Marcelino, for certainly coming through. So it's actually 7 episodes of Book of Boba Fett. So, hey, one more than I was certainly hoping for, to certainly say the least. So I'm really eager to go ahead and get into it. Apologies once again if the internet connection is a little bit wonky today. Hopefully you guys can certainly hear me okay as we go through. But let's go ahead and dive into this particular episode here this week. This was probably my favorite of the season that we've had so far. I feel like there are maybe some people out there that felt like this season so far has been pretty slow moving. Somebody that I mentioned or noticed over on our Facebook page, whenever we put an article out about the Book of Boba Fett, called it like the Book of Bore or something like that. Wasn't really feeling this particular season so far, but I feel like it's definitely picking up here a little bit, especially in episode number 3 here, where we definitely got ourselves a little bit of action, some chase sequences and things like that. Also, I personally have been a really big proponent and fan of the Tusken Raiders storyline that we've gotten in the flashback so far. But the one thing about this particular episode coming in at I think about like 37 minutes or so. So we went from 30, we went to 51, and now we're back to 37. For me, I really like the way that their time was handled for this episode. They definitely didn't feel like they were balancing too much present and past. This was probably the first episode that we've had here so far that really kind of neglected a lot of the flashback sequences and finally kind of caught us up to more present time for Boba, which I definitely was a big fan of, and I think maybe some people would be big fans of it also. When it comes to the flashback sequence here, just pretty sad, honestly, in the sense of seeing Boba go to the Pike Syndicate to go ahead and give them some sort of protection anytime that they certainly cross the Dune Sea, right? In with the Tusken Raiders technically being in charge, but the Pike Syndicate lets him know that there's actually another group that they have been paying for protection also. And I believe this is in regards to the Sand Riders that we've seen over the past 2 episodes, kind of like pillaging and plunging a couple of people's houses and stuff, right? Spray painting some of the houses and things like that also. So we've definitely have been referenced and definitely have connected with them in the first 2 episodes here this season. But Boba lets the Pike Syndicate know that, hey, you know what? Don't worry about them. I'm going to go ahead and handle them. You just pay the Tusken Raiders. They're the ones that truly own the Dune Sea after all this time. Those are the people that'll definitely give you the sort of protection that you definitely need. Unfortunately for Boba, when he goes back to his Tusken Raiders camp, they are in fact demolished, man. Like, I don't know how long Boba was gone, but it almost felt a little too good to be true in the sense that this feels more planned than anything, right? The idea of homeboy leaving to go ahead and deliver a message. He comes back, and unfortunately, the Tusken Raider camp and tribe that he's been a part of has been killed off. Even the main chief no longer is there. Unfortunately, has perished and killed. All their huts and stuff kind of burned to the ground, sort of thing. For me, while I appreciated this flashback, I think the emphasis of this flashback is the sense that this is finally all coming full circle here, right? Like I think it's starting to connect the flashbacks to more present day, dealing with the Pikes in the flashbacks, and now also clearly having to deal with the Pikes in the present. So it definitely feels as though there's certainly a bigger connection there that's definitely happening now that we're starting to see the bigger picture here. Boba definitely clearly has a bone to pick with the Pike Syndicate. And if anything, there is a part of me that wonders if the Pike Syndicate, if they are the ones that actually burn down the Tusken Raider camp, right? Like even though even at the Tusken Raider camp we see the symbols of the Sand Riders and stuff, it would not surprise me if maybe they even paid off the Sand Riders to go ahead and attack the Tusken Raider camp. And the only reason why I say that is maybe they are a little bit butthurt at the idea of what the Tusken Raiders, along with Boba, both did to sort of their sand speed train in the previous episode. And though even though Boba lets them leave and survives and passes a message along, right? Maybe the Pike Syndicate wasn't too thrilled about it. And so there is a part of me that does wonder if the Pike um, had these Sand Riders paid in order to do that. And now that we're in present time, and you come to find out that it's the mayor that is bringing in the Pike Syndicate, if you will, it feels like Boba still has like a bone to pick. Like there's maybe still some animosity from the past in regards to might of what happened with the Tusken Raider camp. Again, that's just speculation. That's just me trying to figure out the connection between Boba and the Pikes, and if it's going to be playing a bigger role as the season progresses or not. But that's kind of where I'm leaning at. Like something just doesn't feel right to me when we're in the flashbacks and how things are definitely playing out when it comes to the present day. And it feels like we're just going back and forth here. Like the mayor says, I had nothing to do with this assassin. They go back. They think it's the Huts, right? Because the Huts wind up approaching them, and they think maybe the Huts wind up sending the assassin. And then you wind up getting the Huts here in this particular episode, letting them know, like, hey, this territory is apparently off limits to the both of us due to the mayor giving this territory over to somebody else once again, right? So now we got to go back to the mayor. The mayor is just playing us for fools at this particular point in time. And I think Boba, along with Fennec, have definitely had enough of this man. And so even though they do go and try and confront him in here, they do in fact see that he's nowhere to be found. Even his magistrate, the person that speaks for him, is trying to outrun Boba at this particular point in time, and he's the one that actually spills the beans that it's actually the Pike Syndicate that the mayor is asking help for, and apparently they have now the territory of Mos Espa. So it definitely seems as though we're going to begin ourselves a little bit of a crime war here. We saw ourselves like a dozen or so kind of getting off the transport ship. So it feels as though like they're definitely securing themselves with numbers here when it comes to Mos Espa. So there's definitely about to be a fight. There's definitely about to be a brawl. And Boba's going to need certainly all the help that he could definitely get, certainly going forward. So I'm kind of liking the little the undertones of seeing how this underground world sort of works, right? Like even at the beginning of this episode, we've got his droid sort of breaking down what happened once Jabba the Hutt fell, how Bib Fortuna came into power. His power was a little shaky in the sense that, the area wind up being like broken off into like 3 different territories that people were certainly in charge of, if you will, right? So it felt like even Bib Fortuna was sort of on the edge of his seat, barely kind of holding things or keeping things together sort of thing until Boba wind up actually coming onto the scene here. So again, seeing just how conniving the mayor certainly is, working under the table, getting the Pikes the territory and things like that, and not even letting Boba know on their very first encounter sort of thing, right? So there's a lot of animosity, a lot of anger certainly going around here, and I'm actually really ready for this crime war. I'm going to be really curious to see who else Boba winds up bringing in to go ahead and maybe fight against the Pikes definitely going forward. Speaking of brand new people to go ahead and bring onto his entourage, we actually wind up getting ourselves a pretty cool group in regards to the Swoop bike Swoop bike gang introduced in this episode. Very early on, we get a character in here played by a very well-known actor and Stephen Root, who I certainly wasn't expecting to be in here. Also, great comedian, but also a great actor as well. Complaining about the idea of these humans slash machines, like these cyborgs that are bullying him sort of out of the water that he's collecting and trying to sell. That they've been robbing this guy. Well, we come to quickly find out that this guy's been hiking up his prices, really making his water super expensive and almost unaffordable for the people that certainly live in that area. And so the Swoop bike gang is certainly just stealing what they want from this man. And they've got no problem letting Boba Fett know that situation also. And we get one of the main characters from the Swoop bike gang, the actress Sophie Thatcher. She plays on the show Yellow Jackets, I believe. She's playing the character by the name of Drash. And I love the fact that Boba in here offers them a job. Like the fact that, hey, you're not making any money to even afford the water that's certainly out there, sort of thing. Come with me. Come with me, sort of thing. And so I really love the idea that now he's got like four cronies or five or six cronies to certainly like watch his back in case anything certainly happens. And they definitely do in this episode, especially when it comes with the battle against the Black Chrysanthemum, and then even get an opportunity to see them in the Swoop bike chase scene towards the end of this episode. Also rocking their Mighty Morphin Power Ranger gear, like their machines. I was like, what kind of bikes are these? I mean, just talk about just super MMPR bright colors in just all desert land area like Tatooine. Definitely glaring on the eyes, but for some reason, when I saw the color combination, my mind immediately went to Power Rangers. So yeah, it's really cool to see at least the Swoop bike gang driving around in fashion, to certainly say the least. But I love the fact that his gang continues to grow. So not only does he have the Swoop bike gang, he now's got Fennec Shand. He also has the two Gamorrean guards. But honestly, if there was anybody else I really wanted to go ahead and actually see um, join his group, it was probably Black Chrysanthemum. And the reason why I say that is even though he was sent by the Hutts and he pulled up one hell of a fight. I mean, talk about a great action sequence in there to see Boba just ripped out of the back to tank, just being brutally beat up without any sort of notice whatsoever, trying to see like 4-on-1, just not even working either. I mean, they literally had to trap this man in the Rancor sort of prison in order just to get him off their back. Because if you ask me, Black Chrysanthemum probably would have had their way with him. Even though everybody was putting up a really great fight, I was really impressed with what Black Chrysanthemum was certainly able to deliver. So really epic battle in here. But when we do see the Hutts leaving the area and saying, hey, you can keep him sort of as tribute, why Boba didn't offer this man a job, I have no idea why. It would have been great to have like this big old Wookiee hanging out behind you along with Fennec Shand. Anytime that you go ahead and just walk down the streets of Mos Espa, he gives them a little bit of advice like, hey, just don't become a bounty hunter for some sort of scumbag out there, sort of thing, right? Like treat yourself better, man. So if anything, I'm surprised he didn't bring him into the fold, because I think that would have been a very powerful weapon. I mean, I think he would have had a great selling point in the sense of like, hey, you know what? The Hutts didn't want you. They just left you for dead, right? They just gave you to me, if you will. I have something else better for you, Black Chrysanthemum. Come and work with me. I'll feed you well. You'll get paid well, right? I don't understand why he didn't become a part of the gang, but maybe he'll pop up at some particular point in time. I would assume, if anything, I'm hoping that he's actually still on Tatooine, because if a Boba is going to need backup for this crime war that's happening, it would be cool to kind of see Chrysanthemum maybe pop back up as a last minute cameo to certainly help them along with their fight, but we'll definitely see. So we got a Sophie Thatcher sighting in here as an actress. We got a Stephen Root in here, and one other actor that wind up really surprising me that I did not expect to see in here, Danny Trejo. I was like, is that Machete? I was like, what is he doing in here? But then when you realize just his personal connection to that of Robert Rodriguez, who also directed this particular episode, it makes sense that Danny Trejo just be in Star Wars in some fashion or another. And no better position for him to be than a Rancor trainer and keeper. And I thought this scene and sequence was incredible. Listen, I got to give them shout outs to this particular series. I don't care what people say in regards to, oh, maybe it's too slow, it's too boring, sort of thing. Listen, they have given so much great depth to two different sort of alien races in here, the Tusken Raiders along with the Rancors. For me, to learn more and appreciate who the Tusken Raiders are, how they communicate, how they live amongst themselves, right? What their values certainly are. For me, as a Star Wars fan, goes a long way. But to also learn more about the Rancor and the fact that he's not just this mindless fighting machine that just tears people to pieces, right? From past Star Wars novels that I've read, they've been showcased that way. The infamous Return of the Jedi sequence, they're kind of showcased that way. So for Danny Trejo's character and the Rancor Keeper to let us know that they're actually really emotionally complex creatures, the fact that they can have great bonds with their ownership, and the first person that they lay eyes on, they immediately sort of have that connection and that bond with. That is so fucking cool to me. Like, that is so cool. And the idea and the notion that Boba Fett wants to learn to ride one of these things, I got to see it before the end of the season, is all I'm going to say. Like, I got to see it in episode 6 or 7, like homeboy coming through on top of a Rancor with his Rancor just slashing these pikes out of the way. I got to see it. Maybe a post credit scene or something. I just got to see Boba riding on this Rancor. And I love the fact that the Rancor keeper lets him know, like, look, the witches of Dathomir used to actually even ride these sort of back in the day in their forest sort of thing. And I do believe I wind up reading that in one of the audio books. I think it was Jedi Lost, I believe it was called, one of the audiobooks. They might have referenced the idea of the witches of Dathomir and Rancors and their relationships together. But I also like the idea that he mentions that he wants to ride one and that he's ridden beasts like 10 times the size of a Rancor. And I thought that was actually pretty cool because if you guys recall, in the history and the lore of the Mandalorians, really long back in the day, the Mandalorians actually used to ride on big winged creatures. I think maybe almost that of like dragons, if you will. I think that the beasts that you see on the Mandalorian's armor with the horns and stuff, that those are in fact the ancient creatures that the Mandalorians used to ride. And I think even in the first season of the Mandalorian, when Mando is trying to learn to ride just that small little creature just to go over the dunes of Tatooine or whatever the case may be, I think even that particular farm owner, I cannot remember the guy's name. Absolutely loved him in that season too, in the first season also. But he even made fun of Mando and the inability to be able to ride it. How can you be a Mandalorian and not ride it when your people used to ride dragons? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's cool that even Boba himself, while he's not necessarily a true Mandalorian, I mean, he's technically a clone off of Django. The fact that even sort of that emphasis of wanting to ride big creatures has kind of always really been instilled in him. And I think that's so cool to kind of connect that with the Witches of Dathomir and what we've seen so far, even in the Mandalorian series, honestly. But, again, for me, guys, I really enjoyed this episode. This was probably my best episode out of the 3 that we've gotten so far. A little bit lacking when it comes to um, the flashback sequences, but I'm perfectly okay with it because the one flashback sequence that I saw, I think it builds even more to the idea that Boba now has to come face to face with the Pike Syndicate one more time. And so we'll see how this story continues to come full circle, but I'm definitely a big fan of it. Marcelino says, couldn't they come up with a better name than Black Chrysanthemum? They could have just named him Chrysanthemum. I mean, that's true, they absolutely could. But I don't know, I wonder if I wonder if he became Black Chrysanthemum because I'm wondering, are there not a lot of black Wookiees out there, right? Like, I think we see so many Wookiees that are brown, and I feel like I probably have seen maybe a black Wookiee here or there before, maybe even in Revenge of the Sith. Um, but there is a part of me like I am wanting outside of that. Maybe that's because he's like the one of the unique and rare ones. So maybe they want to emphasize the black, if you will. Let's see here. Um, Part of me actually wanted to see, like, is that black chrysanthemum even in the Revenge of the Sith? Like, I was kind of curious if that's where he even comes from. I could be wrong. I'll have to go ahead and do some more research in regards to that. Marcelino also says, I still find it funny that Wookiee could survive Tatooine with all that fur. Yeah, homeboy is like just dying of heat stroke, probably. I think, I think it's cool too. One of the tributes, I think, that we saw in episode one, I think one of the furs that they were trying to give as tribute to Boba, it might have been Wookiee fur. Either that or maybe like Bantha or Bantha fur, one of the two. But it definitely looked like Wookiee fur to me, but I could certainly be wrong. But guys, listen, at the end of the day, these are just simply my A plus opinions. I definitely want to go ahead and know yours. What did you guys think about this episode of Book of Boba Fett? Did you appreciate some of the cameos that we wind up getting? How about learning a little bit more about the Rancor? How are you liking the storyline as far as it's coming together so far? Definitely go ahead and let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below, guys. And that'll certainly do it for me here today. If you guys want to go ahead and talk about it even further, I'll definitely meet you in our comment section, or feel free to go ahead and join us over on our Discord forum community, and we'll definitely go ahead and continue the discussion there. But until next time, guys, do me a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the force be with you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.